where Aaron is. I'm doing my meditation, I'm ready for the show, and typically Aaron is doing something else. Oh, I don't know. He's really, really late again. Third time lucky. Aaron!
Shopping, gym. There's something else that I had to do today.
Take on me, take on me, take me on, Aaron!
So, what I have to do today, I had to go to the gym and go shopping. Something else I was supposed to do.
Oh my God, Aaron, wasn't that a great meditation?
Oh God, I totally drifted off somewhere else.
Did you? Oh my God, hi everyone. Oh my God, this is Justin. Hi. Welcome to the back room. This is Joey.
Welcome.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I was so deep in that. I'm trying to wake up.
Sorry, I think we should give. What's your name? This is.
Oh, Aaron. It's Aaron. Sorry.
See everyone. I think we should
remember my name. It's Aaron.
I think we should give Aaron a different name every week. Every segment, we give him a different name. So today he's called Aaron. Yeah. So how have you been? Yes. You've been well. You've been well the last fortnight.
Honestly, I've got a bit of a head cold.
Oh.
Interesting. It's not the big C COVID. It's just it's interesting.
Just feel a bit.
It's this season changing seasons and stuff like that. So a bit of a runny nose. It's sexy. It really is.
I feel like I'm getting one now as of today. I've got this headache here, but that's okay. I'm going to struggle through because I am a SMB man. On today's show, we have got the Pride Connection, and we're going to be looking at Lawrence's new section. We're going to be speaking to Sandy, who's going to be talking to us about addiction. We're going to be also talking to a new member, Alex, who's going to be now running a celebration of life. And my God, Aaron, once you see this section, Aaron has transformed his life after being hit by a motorbike at a young age and is now living the life that he's meant to be through that adversity. And we're also going to be speaking to our BEAR Gardner. Oh my God, do you love him?
Love BEAR.
I love BEAR too. I know. And he's in the UK and he's going to be telling us all about indoor plants again. Who else do we have? Oh, Blake. Oh my God, how could I forget Blake? We have Blake who's going to be talking to us about domestic violence that men experience. That's a big show, isn't it?
Yeah, it's touching a lot of different things. So, which obviously are all very relevant, very good.
Yeah, good. Good is good, Don. So the topic of the week. My God, everyone's talking about it. 50 million people worldwide.
Is it about my
Meagan.
beard?
It's about your
my beard? No.
no. It's about Oprah's interview with Meagan and Harry. So, let's talk about it from the mental health perspective. So, I know there's lots of controversy around it, but how did you take Meagan and Harry admitting that they've had mental health issues because of pressure and stuff like that? What's your take on that?
I there's so this, you can see it from so many different angles, can't you? I mean, the pros and the cons, and they should have done this, and the privileged lifestyle that they have. I'm glad they spoke up about it. They told their side of the story. It doesn't matter. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought to myself, why are we focusing? I mean, I know it's the institution and I know it's a big thing, right? The palace is big, but it's still I don't understand why things like bullying in the paper and all that is acceptable. Do you know what I mean? Apparently she went through 2 years of racist comments. I saw some of the comments. They compared her baby Archie to a gorilla or something. How do we get away with that? So, if we're advocating people not to bully each other on social media, I don't understand how that's any different.
It's not.
So why do we do it? Why do they do it? Is it to sell papers?
Sell papers. People eat that shit up. It's the society that there is. That's how they sell those trashy mags. That's how the media it's a money-making machine. They'll do anything they can to sell papers. That's what they do. That's just the nature of the beast. And people eat that shit up. And it's just why? No. Unless you're there and you saw it for yourselves, you don't know.
So what do you think, why do you think humanity doesn't see beyond the mental health problem? I feel like she said something on that interview, and yet people are either ignoring it or they're calling it fake or a lie. I know Piers Morgan, he quit his job because of the fact that he said that the suicidal attempt comment was actually a lie. And so people sent in, there was something like 41,000 complaints. 41,000.
Can I just want to, I found that really interesting from Piers Morgan. Side note, there's a girl called Chelsea Handler on. She's a very outspoken American lady. I found her tweet. It was a screenshot. I've got to read this because I found it really interesting. It must be nice that Piers Morgan gets to leave a situation when he feels uncomfortable, but criticizes a black woman when she does the same thing.
Yeah. I know. I mean, that's the thing. It's quite
interesting.
I'm sort of glad. I'm sure he didn't leave. I'm sure he got told to leave. But I'm so glad that they took that step, because I did look up all the interviews and I was cringing by the way he was talking to the people being interviewed. And it was like, oh my God, when did we become so aggressive? I remember the day when you used to pick up a paper and there'd be both sides of the story. Remember those days? Where that was journalism? That was called journalism, right? Now it's only one side. Right, you only get one side of the story, and it all depends on who owns the paper and what side they're following. So, all the people that hate Meghan Markle, those papers always will hate her. While the other papers that are supporting her, those papers will always support her. But there's never any of the papers talk the same. They don't do any. What do you call it? Journalism. I'm not right. It's journalism, isn't it? Journalism is all about telling you the story.
It's okay. So apparently Google has the algorithm. If you search certain things, then every time you go back to Google, it will show you the things that you like, whether they're on the right or the left. It will feed you. That's what it feeds you.
I know. I hate that. I type in gay and now all I get gay. On that note, we'll be back after this break.
Hey everybody. Here today to talk about the LGBTQI pronouns in our community is Lawrence from the Pride Project, and this is brought to you by Vivid Audiovisual.
Hi everyone, I'm Lawrence. This week on Pride, I want to talk to you about the topic of labels. Now, as human beings, we love labels. They help for us to define who we are, as well as which tribe we tend to belong to. When people meet you for the first time and ask you to tell a little bit about yourself, what we tend to turn to more often than not are the labels that we have attributed about ourselves to describe who we are, whether it be our name, our job, our age, even our sexual preference. These are all labels that we use to explain who we are. And within the LGBT community, we tend to love labels, or there's a love-hate relationship, I think, that tends to go on with them. There could be fierce debate and discussion about the use of the word gay versus queer. And even within the community, you'll have men who describe themselves as bears or twinks or otters or daddies or leather. You know what? It's used to both define who you are and in some cases celebrate who you are as well. But within that, there's also a bit of a side edge too. I certainly know that within the bisexual community, there are people out there who feel that bisexuals sit on the fence, who are in denial. And this all comes back to their own paradigm of reality. Perhaps they find bisexuality a little bit frightening. I don't know. But there can tend to be this judgment that goes on with it because they simply don't understand how bisexuality works. And I'm beginning to notice that more and more nowadays when it comes to gender roles as well, particularly people who are non-binary. I was recently invited into a Facebook group, and it was aimed at the gay community, and the first topic was around the recent Mardi Gras broadcast. And someone had posed a question about why it was that people were presenting who they were, and then their pronouns of he, him, she, her. And I don't know if the question was a genuine one or if it was just one of disdain, but it was raised. And what I found also was that there was a lot of negativity back towards non-binary. People that did try to express that they were non-binary kind of left the group pretty much straight away because they could tell that they weren't welcome there. And it made me wonder if the gay community was perhaps in some ways prejudiced against people that were non-binary. This is a sweeping generalization, but if I was to take a sample from that group, it did make me wonder if perhaps people who are perhaps slightly older or around my age demographic struggle with this because quite simply, in our experience, our self has always been a singular. But nowadays there are people who are becoming more aware and are more open to that idea that they are more than just male or female. We know that. We've seen transgender people now for decades who have been born one sex but are clearly another. And you can tell that by looking at them, that they simply exude that opposite gender. And so I find it interesting why it is that people who identify as non-binary are copying so much flack from certain parts of the community. Is it simply because we're unable to get our head around this whole idea of being both male and female, or sometimes neither? And in many ways, how does it really impact on us as individuals? I tend to think of my non-binary friends, and I want to publicly apologize for not having a better understanding of it yet. I'm still learning about this and understanding it myself. And, I invite others to be equally curious and genuine in their curiosity so that we can embrace these people within our community so that they can feel that they are accepted and understood. Now, for me, the closest thing that I can say to experiencing that was when I did drag once. And, that feeling of another part of me coming forward that I wasn't aware of previously, it definitely felt like I was being another person for the night. And you could argue that's role playing or anything like that. Completely get that. But for me, it was very much a notable experience. And this is probably the closest that I've had in time to understanding that duality that might exist within us. But I'd be really curious for people who are non-binary to share with us a better understanding about what it is, so that any of this prejudice that exists within the community can be put to bed, so that we can make sure that we treat everyone within our community with the respect and the love and the understanding that they deserve. You wouldn't go calling your transgender friend their previous name. And you certainly wouldn't tolerate it yourself if you had someone aggressively calling you a fag or a homo. Labels are important in defining us, and we need to be able to show that respect to our non-binary community so that they can feel accepted too. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Coming up next is a new member to the SMB TV team, and it's Alex. And Alex is going to be now running the A Celebration of Life segment. And in this segment, he's going to talk about This Is Me. He's going to share with you what makes him unique in regards to the way that he has taken his disability, his adversity to being in a motorbike accident, to living the best life possible. And this segment is brought to us by InSynergy Wealth Property Market Group.
Howdy guys, and welcome to A Celebration of Life with me, your new host with the most, Alex Paul Eleftheriou. Gentlemen, the name of this segment is This Is Me because, well, this is me. This is my introduction, as I'm brand new to Secret Men's business. This is my introduction. This is my story. This is my trials and tribulations. And with that said, let us begin. On the 19th of September 2012 at around 8:30 p.m., I was riding my motorbike back home from a friend's place, and I was about 1.3 kilometers from home, around about that. I only know that now because of Google Maps, thank God, but I was around 1.3 k's from home, and I was approaching the last set of traffic lights, and I watched the traffic lights go from green to amber to red. Now there was a petrol servo on the corner that I've cut through not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4, but many, many more. And this time I cut through, and just like I did every other time, I basically went into autopilot. So I cut through the petrol station. As I was getting back onto the road, I was T-boned by a car coming from my blind side, which would have been my left at the time. Now, I don't remember it. I don't actually remember. I just remember cutting through the petrol station, and then that was pretty much it. Getting onto the road, and it was basically like falling asleep. Like I said, I was T-boned by the car, and I was knocked into a coma immediately. The ambulance came. There was a lot of things that I don't really know about because the information I now have is only through police reports. And so the ambulance arrived. They rushed me to hospital. I was in a coma. I was knocked unconscious. I was trying to wake up, so I'm told. I was trying to wake up, and they put me into an induced coma due to the amount of trauma I received. I broke pretty much every bone in my body, from my cervical vertebrae, my cervical vertebrae, pretty much down to my navicular bone in my right foot. I broke everything from clavicles to my shoulder blades, both my shoulders. It was very traumatic. I was in an induced coma for 21 days, where all I can really remember is just very vivid dreams, terrible, horrific dreams, due to the amount of pain I was in and also the amount of medication that was being administered to me at the time. I eventually did wake, which was very lucky, as my friends and family were told to brace themselves for the worst, which is a terrible thing to hear when your 17-year-old son, by the way, I was only 17 years old when this did happen, your 17-year-old son, your 17-year-old best friend is probably not going to make it. Anyway, I did make it, and I'm still here, lucky enough. That's why we're celebrating life right now. So I woke up out of the coma. I had a tracheostomy, so I was unable to speak. I was only able to point out letters on like a letterboard to explain what I was thinking, what I was feeling, what I wanted to say. I remember waking up and the first thing I thought, or the first thing that came to me, was my best friend's phone number. That was the first thing that came to me. It was almost like I woke up out of the coma and I just wanted to call my mate to let him know what had happened. Turns out he was there in the room with me. So that was a total freak out. And also waking out of a 21-day coma, if anyone's had a hangover before, imagine that, but amplified about 1,000 times. That's what it felt like. It was pretty full on. Anyway, so I woke up out of the coma. I was able to explain things to everyone. I didn't know what had happened to me, really. And people were trying to explain it to me, and I was really not in the headspace to be hearing what I was hearing, is all I can really say. So I did hear what was said, but I was also suffering from something a little bit more severe, which was the fact that I couldn't move my body at all. There was no movement. Couldn't move my fingers. I could wiggle my right toes, as I recall. I still can, which I love to do. But that was full on, because I woke up. First thing I wanted to do was scratch my face, I think. But I couldn't. Couldn't understand why. I had a doctor come in and talk to me, and that's when he told me that I was a quadriplegic, that I was a C4 incomplete spinal cord injury. Now, at 17 years old, you do not know what the hell that is, and you just can't process it. The fact that I was never going to walk again. The doctors were blunt. They have to be. And they told me what they needed to say, and I was having trouble processing. To be quite honest with you, it was the last of my problems. I had just woken up out of a 21-day coma. I was not feeling great. Anyway, so on and so forth. Days went on. I wasn't getting better, as in the paralysis. I was still paralyzed. I couldn't move anything. And there was nothing I could really do. Days, weeks, months went by. Nothing changed. I had the tracheostomy taken out of me. I was able to speak now. I was able to communicate with my family and friends, but I was unable to get out of bed. I was unable to move my legs. I was unable to move my arms. I was paralyzed. It was horrible. But, as I said, days, weeks, months, and years have now gone by. And I sit before you, not just a paralyzed being, but a being that's grown, matured, and come to terms with what has happened to me. I'm 26 years old. So this is 8 years post-injury. And I'm still smiling. There's no doubt about that. I am still smiling. Because there's nothing that you can do. Sometimes life will hit you so hard, but as Rocky Balboa put it, it's not how hard you hit. It's how hard you can get hit and move forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's what it's all about. So in a celebration of life, you have to celebrate it every single day, because every day on this earth is a blessing. I think Mel Robbins said it in a TEDx interview. We are 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born. We have a 1 in 400 trillion chance of being born. Those are some mighty odds. You might as well win the Powerball 1,000 times in a year. Maybe that's exaggerating, but that's what I'm talking about. It's crazy. You got to be thankful for being here. Whether you're black, white, Asian, we're all amazing. So I appreciate the platform that Joey has put me on with Secret Men's Business to be able to share my testimony, to be able to shine a light on very dark nights. That's a quote that I live by. Through every dark night, there will be a brighter day after that. So keep your head up, stick your chest up, stick your chest out, and handle your business, guys. Handle it.
Wow, that was really inspiring. And I don't know about you, but it just sort of makes you think that, you know when you complain about the most simplest things and you think that your whole world's going to fall apart, and then you see an inspirational person like Alex and you think, why am I complaining? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
inspirational. Wow.
yeah. So what has happened in your life that you have any adversity in your life that you've been able to get through?
Yes. I'm reminded when anybody sees my tattoo. I'm not flexing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
That's flexing. So basically, it's a rune symbol on Viking descendants. I mean, strength and courage. I mean, it's a reminder to me of a situation that I went through 12 years ago. I moved down to Melbourne for a partner. 8 months into it, he just said it wasn't working for him. It was too hard to go any further with it. So it was reminded that within 6 weeks, my partner broke up with me, lived on my friend's floor for 6 weeks, and had to I finished with one airline, started with a new airline, and found a place to live all within 6 weeks. And I broke down 2-3 weeks into training, lost my shit. And a friend of mine just said, well, all those big things in your life, moving, partners, new job and stuff like that, you've had like 3 or 4 of them all within a space of 6 weeks. I'm going, oh, okay, well, that'll make sense as to why I'm feeling like I am. But looking back, grateful for that experience, because I love in Melbourne. Melbourne's, for me, is the best place in Australia for me. And I'm so grateful that happened, because out of the ashes came the phoenix of everything. I'm grateful for that experience.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
And
It's a really good explanation about the phoenix, isn't it? Sometimes you have to break down to find the new you. Like, I think a lot of people think that they can stay the same with like 20s, 30s. You always have to, things happen that break us down. Like when I was unable to walk, like, it's weird how you don't really know anything until you're in it. But it has to be, I think, that second where you either become one part version or another version. Like I definitely went through some dark times, like Alex mentioned in his clip, but something clicks where you don't want to be there anymore. Well, I think it's interesting how some people stay there. It must be really hard to stay in that dark place all the time, and then you have to get used to it.
But people feel comfortable to stay in that.
I know, but people
they
do
don't want
it.
to go any further because they feel comfortable, and that's all they know, and they don't want to go anywhere else with that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying, is that they're unhappy, but they stay there because it's comfortable or whatever, and that must be hard. Like I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to walk, right? So there's a fire in you that lifts you up, but some people just give up, and so they have a sad life, which again impacts mental health. I mean, it's interesting. Like Alex's little segment talks about mental health in a positive way. You know what I mean? Like sometimes we always look at mental health in a negative way. It's a bad thing, or it's a anxiety or something. But that was a mental health element where he just snapped out of it and just became inspirational. Now he talks to people at schools and all that. Like, that's amazing.
Yes. Side note, I just want to also mention there was a gentleman when I was on an airline called Kirk Fernley. I don't know if you know him, he's an inspirational speaker from around Australia. He's a quadriplegic. No, it's a paraplegic. He's from the waist down. Can't feel. He's done the Kokoda Trail.
Wow. I'll look
And
him up and I'll make sure I have information for everyone on this episode. Because I mean that's inspiring. So how does he do that? I mean, I couldn't even do that.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to do it because I know that's hard. And he's done it on his arms. Like he's just gone through with his team, and he's done it on his arms. He's done it. And when everybody came on board the aircraft, would obviously bring the guests on first that needed help. But he'd just come on his wheelchair. He'd get off his wheelchair, take the wheel off, give us the wheelchair, go downstairs. He would, get himself to the seat, sit down, and he was also very grateful. But he also was very. He really respected us as well for us doing our job, because every time you get on a flight, you have to have a disabled briefing. And I said, I'm sorry, what I have to do? He said, no, tell us. I know you're doing your job. He was so respectful of us, but he was amazing. He still is amazing.
Yeah, and he lived his life. He just lived his life without seeing the adversity. So that's really, again, it's inspiring. And that's what I love about this show, is that we can bring you those sort of stories. So I'm so happy to have Alex on the team. I think
it's amazing.
Every segment, he's going to show us what he feels is a celebration of life. Okay, we'll be back after this break.
Hey everybody, this is the BEAR Gardner Ian. He's showing us how to repot your indoor plants. And this segment is brought to you by Akers Luxury Private Tools.
Good afternoon, my name's Ian Buckley-Walker and I'm the BEAR Gardner, and welcome back to my section on SMB TV about gardening. So last time I spoke to you, we spoke about the types of house plants that were pretty easy to look after. Today I'm going to explain to you a bit about potting a plant. So when you actually purchase the plant from wherever it will be it online, as most people are at the moment because of the COVID situation, we can't actually go to shops. But there's a wide variety of places where you can purchase these. So we're going to lead on now as if you've chosen what plant you want, and the plant actually arriving at your home. So we're going to take it from your plot basically arriving at home. Now this Spathiphyllum is basically a peace lily, and it will arrive at your house, I'd say, in a pot this kind of size. As you can see from this, it's not looking particularly great. In fact, it's looking pretty shabby. So what it basically needs is to be repotted. As I explained last time, plants will come in very, very small containers when you buy them. The reason for this is because it's cheaper. The less soil they have to put in, the tighter they can pack them together, the more they can transport in one go. So to give this plant a bit of a fighting chance, we need to put it into a pot that's slightly larger. So for example, something that around about this size, you should be able to drop it into another pot, giving it about at minimum that much extra gap all around the plant. Now with an indoor plant, the way that you plant the pot up is really, really crucial. And the thing that I can't emphasize enough is drainage of this pot is the key to the success of the survival of your plant. So having got a really nice large pot, make sure there is holes in the bottom of it so that any excess water can flow out. Now the first thing you put in the bottom of your pot is some sort of water retention stuff. I've got some Hydrolica here. So basically take a couple of handfuls of this, put it at the bottom. What this is going to do is it's going to elevate the soil away from the bottom of the pot. If you haven't got this stuff and it's not available, you can break up some polystyrene, crumble that up, put that at the bottom, you'll have exactly the same sort of effect. So just a very fine layer at the bottom there. What we're then going to do is just add a bit of soil to this. Now I've got a pre-mix here. Now when you're talking about the ratio of compost to soil, in a pot, you need to have about 20 to 50% compost to a soil mix. The reason it's slightly higher than when it's in the ground is because compost retains more moisture. So in a pot, you need to retain as much moisture as you can. So about a 50-50 split. You can also buy pre-mixed potting compost, which does exactly the same thing. And the advantage of the pre-mixed stuff is it does have the drainage foam inside it as well. So it's a good little tip to go for that. So what I'm going to do is take a nice big healthy handful of soil, put that in the bottom, push it round to the side. I'm going to take out my piece and gently take it out. Just break about a few of the roots out, just ease them out so they're not crumpled in that cluster that you normally get at the bottom of your plant when you buy it. And we're going to place it in there. So the depth of the plant, we basically want the plant to be just below the level of the side of the pot. And we're going to push that in, top it up with some soil, and we're just going to gently push the soil around the outside of the base of the existing plant as we work that round. So just use your fingers, push that in, bring that right up. Wonderful. She's looking a little bit happier already. So what we're then going to do is we're going to give it a nice big water. Now, as I said, the trick to houseplants is to making sure that you water them enough but don't overwater them. So we know this has got holes at the bottom. A little trick, if you're not used to how often to water your plant, instead of dropping it into another fancy container, which looks lovely, start initially by dropping it onto a plate. This way, you're going to be able to see any excess water draining onto that plate. So you know if there's lots of water sitting on your plate, that you're overwatering it. So use that for a couple of weeks and then you'll be able to create a nice little rhythm. Right, I know that this plant needs to be watered once a week, maybe twice a week. Just before you water it, just remember the test with the finger. Stick that into the soil. Feel the level of moisture in that soil. If the soil comes right off, then you know that it's really dry. If the soil sticks, it's a little bit wet, which is what you're kind of aiming for. Now, when placing your plant in the house, read the instructions on the side. They'll generally tell you whether the plant needs to be in full sun or in shade. But even if you're inside a house that doesn't have a lot of light, doesn't mean to say you can't have plants. But what you've got to remember is that plant needs the light to be able to help it to grow. So maybe once or twice a week, just move the pot to a window position where it can get as much light as possible. Leave it there for the day, let it absorb the light, then put it back into the position where you want it. The next thing you've got to do is just monitor it basically. Keep a check on those leaves. If they look nice and dry, give them a spray with a mister. If they look happy, leave it.
The next segment by Sandy, who is the take two. Next, we're going to be looking at the SMB Men's Drug and Alcohol Advocacy run by Sandy, and she's going to be talking about a really interesting topic. Apparently, it's really cool to be clean. So people are now looking at a clean lifestyle, and they're finding that being clean is way better than being a user. So Sandy's going to be talking about that, and this segment's brought to us by Get Outside Melbourne.
Hi and welcome again. It's Sandy here talking to you about some things about different types of addictions and perception today. So one of the things that often not me personally, I'm lucky enough I've never been in addiction, but a lot of people is often linked to how they see themselves, especially once they become an addict. They may have been beforehand quite successful or not even successful. Like it's very, very much a perception, and often when you're in active addiction, that some of those can alter, which is often why we go into addiction. So when you see yourself, say you were perhaps lacking in self-confidence. And the drugs or the gambling or whatever it was that was your particular affliction or is now, it helps you to see yourself in a different way. And probably at the start it helped. Like even if you were quite successful, it could have enhanced those feelings. And being on the in crowd, you know, so we sort of look at ourselves societally within all of those things. It sort of links in with the first segment where I was talking about the perception of how society sees addiction. And when you start looking at yourself and seeing yourself as an addictive or in addiction, you start to see yourself differently. You can see yourself, especially the change of perception of when you start wanting to become clean. Often there's a lot of self-damage that you'll do to yourself. You might see yourself as a failure. If you're a successful person, you start going, oh my God, I didn't even see that coming. Most people don't. Also, the person that has seen themselves as a failure sees themselves as more of a failure. So it's this double-edged, horrible sword addiction. It really, really is. And there's so much self-damage that addicts do to themselves, you know. And, you know, on top of that, you know, when you look at the masculine side, because, you know, this is the back room, guys. This is we're talking to men. So when you see your roles in society and some of the things that have been placed on you inadvertently, it's just how it is, you know, if you're living in a relationship or if you're a father, if you're a son, all those sort of things, there's these perceptions that are placed on you without you even knowing. And then, you know, one thing after another, low self-esteem or incredibly having to achieve highly, all those sort of pressures. Anyway, so when we start looking at, like, if you start looking at yourself in a different way and go, I don't want to do this anymore, it's a really, really good thing. You know that you're starting to hit it. Like you're going, right, I don't want to be that person anymore. I don't particularly like that person. I'd like to see myself, you know, in a calm, successful way. And interestingly enough, and I just find this really ironic, guys. I really, really do. But I love it because it allows you to start shifting perception in a really positive way. So how we think about ourselves. So one of the things that is becoming amazingly cool, and who would have known, is to be clean. So to be one of the cool people now, like, so if you're standing around and people are talking, I was addicted to blah, 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 whatever that addiction was, you'll get people's attention and you go, but I'm clean now. And I can guarantee, not guarantee, but I would say the vast majority of people are going to hook on and go, oh my God, you are amazing. You've done something amazing. You become one of the cool people. So your self-perception of becoming clean changes totally. And I know these are really little short segments, but if you start allowing that perception into becoming clean as cool, who knew? It's the latest thing. Oh my God, you were addicted. You're clean. That is cool. Start allowing that perception in. It allows you to see yourself in a really positive way. You are not failures. You are not. You didn't ask for it. You didn't see it coming. It's okay. You didn't fail. But certainly when you start seeing yourself working towards how you see yourself as clean, as being cool, it can make definitely that journey a lot easier. Anyway, enough from me today, guys. Have a fantastic week. Allow yourself to think positively. And straight back to you guys, back to Aaron and to Joe in the back room. Remember to share, like, do all those things. Get the message out there. And I will talk to you next time. All right, cheers.
Interesting, I think. Like, funny, watching that segment, I thought to myself, I don't remember actually the last time I saw someone smoking. I know that we've been in COVID lockdown, but, smoking doesn't seem cool anymore, and as much as it used to be when you used to see it everywhere. So, it may be cool now for people to look at their drug use and think that it's not cool. It's not cool. They're looking at it and going, I want a healthier life. So what are your thoughts on that?
Maybe they're noticing a bit more other people are not doing it as much. But then why are they doing it in the first place? I guess that's what they have to look at instead of thinking.
Yeah, well, maybe people have been sort of doing things because they've been following the crowd. Because, like, if you think about it, COVID has made us all go in, right? And now we have to depend on ourselves or who we're living with. So you don't have the access to bars and clubs in 2020. So maybe people have learned that, I can live without it. And now that we go back into the real world, people are no longer bringing in those habits or addictions into public places. Maybe, I don't know. Did you used to smoke?
I cannot stand it. You can have a whole packet in your mouth, light it up, smoke it, knock yourself out. But if it impedes my oxygen, then I'll lose my shit. You can do whatever you like. It's up to that individual, and that's their own choice. But
you don't do it.
They have it around me, and they don't think of it. I guess because I'm an empath and I care about everybody else, or what I'm doing so that I don't interrupt somebody else. But when I see somebody else smoking, that's great. But if they're upwind from me and they can't notice that they're upwind and their smoke comes towards me, even in a car, Joey, I can actually smell somebody smoking in front of me in the car, and I can't stand it.
Really? Yeah. So that means you've never smoked, right? That's I mean,
I've tried it. My dad smokes. My mum smokes. My sister is now finally quitting after 40 years. Interesting note that first light of the match and that smell is like,
it's different. No, not at all. Yeah, like, I mean, I used to smoke quite heavily, and then I became a therapist, and I stopped. But, like, I can't even imagine now smoking. I'm the same as you now. I hate the smell, but it's so funny how you just smoked and all that smell was going into your body. You know what I mean? So I can understand how it's not cool now, because really, it's like you know what I mean?
It's like, how is it? Just the look of it because it's cool, because it's acceptable?
It was just a habit. I started smoking at a young age, so it was just a habit. But then when you break it, it's such a powerful thing.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think we've discussed this. Is that, it's not the addiction. It is the addiction. It's the feeling you get from that. Obviously, it could be either drugs or sex or whatever that is, but it's just that's the addiction, right? It's not the addiction itself. It's the feeling that you get from that.
Yes, yeah. Like, you're smoking or you're doing whatever, and it's bad, but you keep doing it. So you need something to stop you. So yeah. So interesting. Okay.
Clean is good.
Clean is good.
Hey everybody, I'd like to welcome our newbie Blake. He has a segment called Men's Community Connection, and today we'll be discussing how men deal with domestic violence.
Welcome to Men's Community Connect. My name is Blake Ryan, and I'm really excited to be here as part of the SMB TV's backroom. Thank you, Joey and Aaron, for having me. I'm super excited to be covering different topics every month. So today, the purpose of this segment is to talk about different issues affecting our community. What we're going to be doing is discussing issues and how they affect men specifically. So some of the topics that we're going to talk about are the topics that we find hard to talk about. The things that might be considered a little bit taboo. Before we get started on today's topic, if anyone feels like they need to talk to anyone about any of the issues that we cover, please call Lifeline on 13114. So I wanted to start off the conversation today about domestic violence. Domestic violence affects thousands of people every year, myself included. And what I realised is that I can use the experience that I've had to spread the word about domestic violence and start a conversation and actually help people. That's why I founded the Lighthouse LGBTQIA+ Domestic Violence Foundation. So there's a common myth about domestic violence that if you ignore it, it'll go away. But domestic violence is about power and control. So one person in the relationship tries to take power over one another and have control over that person. So domestic abuse is not always physical. It could be controlling finances, monitoring your phone calls, removing you from your friends and family so that you have no support. But it also has the physical aspect as well. So during the COVID-19 lockdown, people found themselves unemployed and locked in with people in close proximity. This added strains on relationships, and the number of people trying to access services rose by about 180%. This is huge for our services, and they're struggling to be able to offer that service to people experiencing domestic violence. So whilst women make up the highest statistical amount of people experiencing domestic violence, I think it's really important to acknowledge that domestic violence can and does affect men as well. Men in heterosexual relationships feel like they don't have a voice, or there's no one they can reach out to. They think that society doesn't want you to talk about the issues that are affecting you behind closed doors. Men in same-sex relationships often don't have family support. They have a fear of being outed at home or being outed at work, which causes additional issues for men experiencing domestic violence. So what I want to do is to get people talking about domestic violence. I don't want people to ask themselves some questions to figure out, are you in a domestic abusive relationship? So question 1, are you constantly being asked where you are? Question 2, does your partner accuse you of doing things that you may or may not have done? Question 3, do you feel like you're afraid to talk to your partner about the relationship, or to even talk to your friends about it as well? What can men do to help people or help yourselves when you're in a domestic violence relationship? You can create an environment where domestic violence is not okay. You can make it so other men can talk about it. They can feel free to go up to a mate and say, hey, I think I'm in an abusive relationship. You could become a domestic violence advocate yourself. I did. So what I believe is causing services to not change in their service delivery is that statistically, all the research is set around men bashing women being the victims of the rage of a man. But that's not always true. So where is the research going, and why is there no research going into underreported issues such as men experiencing domestic violence? Statistically speaking, the results are actually showing that men are not even aware of what domestic violence is. They think that it might be okay to hit a woman if she's not doing the right thing, or hit their partner if they're not doing the right thing. And this is quite alarming, because the younger generation aren't learning about what domestic violence entails and what a healthy relationship is and how to build those from a younger age. Violence. The triggers in same-sex relationships compared to heterosexual relationships are the same. We go through the same stresses as anyone else. We just have these additional stresses on top of those, such as being outed, not having family support. So when we're in this pressure cooker, the things that a heterosexual or a same-sex couple might feel are sometimes considered a little bit more stressful. Myself experiencing domestic violence, I did feel like I was a little bit trapped. I felt like, I love this person and he's just going to change, or maybe I'm the one that's causing all this. But that's not the case. So what happened with me was someone approached me and they say, you used to be smiling, you used to be happy, and we've noticed that your light has changed. Like, something must be going on. And I broke down and I cried. So finally, I feel like someone's opened that door for me to say, yes, something is wrong. So then I had the strength and I had the support to walk away that I had no idea about. I didn't realize that there was the emotional abuse that was making me walk away from friends that I'd had for 10 years prior to that relationship. It was Yeah, really bad. So the process of leaving a domestic violence situation is not easy. It's probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to go through. But I feel like it's made me a stronger person today. And I'm able to sit here and talk to people who could potentially use what I have to remove themselves from a domestic violence relationship. I felt like I had no choice. I had to stay in that relationship. Where would I live? Who would I ask for help? Does anyone even care about what I'm going through? You know, my employers, do I tell them? Like, how far does this go? And what else am I going to have to struggle with? And there are so many things. And what I'm trying to do is write a program that tackles each and every different part of someone's journey through leaving a domestic violence relationship. So the things that I learned from my experiences of domestic violence is the early signs. So things that would sneak up on a relationship that go a little bit unnoticed, like, oh, I need to check your phone, like, who's that messaging you, where have you been, how come it took you so long to get home? All that stuff is still considered abuse, and it is against the law. So relationships now are built on honesty and respect. You know, I know what a healthy relationship looks like now because I have something to compare it to. So if you're experiencing an abusive relationship, or you're afraid things might be getting a little bit violent, the first step is to start putting in a plan. It's thinking about how to store important documents in a place that you might be able to get them on a quick escape. Who would you go to? Who would you call? Know that there are domestic violence liaison officers who are trained to deal with this stuff, and you're not alone. That's the biggest thing. When you're experiencing domestic violence, you think that it's a private issue, but it's actually not. There are people out there who can help you. There's emergency accommodation. They can house your animals, because a lot of people won't leave because they have pets. Part of what I learned was that having a plan in place, and what I'm trying to do for people is to create, you know, steps like contacting a domestic violence liaison officer to stand outside while you collect your things. Only grab what's important and just get out of there, because your safety comes first. That's my biggest advice. Thank you, Joey and Aaron. I really love being here today. I'm going to include some information and some links. So I hope you've enjoyed today, and I'd love to hear what other people would like to talk about in the future.
It's pretty intense. Have you ever dealt with anything like that for yourself with domestic violence?
I'm really embarrassed. Actually, like, when I was really young, in my early 20s, I was ending a relationship, and I got so angry that I threw something at someone. I threw a pot plant, and then I hit them. That was the only time. That's the only time in my life that I've ever hit anyone, and that was really. And I cried after I did it because I felt really bad. But you know, I was able to control my emotions moving forward. But I could understand if someone doesn't have awareness, how they could easily get out of control. Like in that moment, I was in my early 20s, so I didn't have as much understanding, and I just took it personally and just used violence. But the interesting thing that I found is I didn't know that verbal stuff is abusive. I think, you know what I mean? Like, if someone says you can't go out, that's domestic abuse.
You mean verbal abuse, domestic verbal?
Yeah, domestic verbal abuse. Like, so I always thought it was hitting someone, or I always thought it was controlling someone in a really demanding way. But I didn't realize if someone said, like, if I said to you, "You're stupid," that's domestic abuse. Because it's verbal. I learned a lot by listening to Blake. So how about you? Have you experienced any domestic violence or any domestic abuse?
Growing up as a kid, there was, domestic violence within the home. And Dad and I have talked about it, and he, his map of the world and mine were completely different, and he was going through a lot at that stage, but he didn't know any different. His story about how Dad never hit me, but Mum and Dad were very physical towards each other after alcohol. That's another story. But Dad was, I don't know, do you know what an Alcathene, Alcathene is? Alcathene pipe. It's a long piece of black plastic pipe. And my dad used to Used to be
Oh,
by
like
his
like a
dad,
PVC pipe.
by the PVC.
Oh, I thought you meant pipe, like a smoking pipe.
It was very bendy but thick. And
Oh,
even my dad's dad threw a pitchfork at him, and because that's what he did. That's what that's what happened. And my dad didn't know any different in how to deal with things. And but now he's now that we've talked about stuff, and he's really come on board, and he's grown as a man, and he realized what he's done. He didn't know what he was doing at the time, but that's what he knew. That's all he knew.
yeah.
Totally different, but he's really done a lot of work on himself, and we can look back and talk about that stuff and not have any attachment to it, and realize how much he has grown. But the domestic violence towards men is very interesting, because that's a specific place that men are. Then it must be a hard place to have that. I'm a man, but this being a heterosexual relationship, having this woman beat up on me or treating me in a certain way, but I can't touch this woman, or I can't say anything because she's a woman and I'm a man, and I can't do that towards a woman, and you can't fight back type thing, and that's or not speaking up about that. That's got a lot to do with mental health. That's
Yeah. Well, it's really just about learning about respect. I think that's what it boils down to. We have to teach people, young kids, to learn that there is no. I mean, like in your case, you watched it in a family dynamic. Like with me, my dad never hit us with his hands, but it was similar to you. He hit us with the broom, right? So we would always go running under the bed, and then he would get the broom and shove it under the bed. And it wasn't. Looking back, it wasn't never anything that we never got hurt. I think it was more the scare, right? Which is still abuse in a way, because I remember being, in the corner, not wanting to get hit by the stick, which is still. But I think it's interesting because my dad is the same. He would never do that now. So I think it's good that men now are starting to say, hold on, I'm actually being abused. I think there was shame associated with it.
Oh,
imagine telling the police that your wife is hitting you, or imagine, a gay guy may be in a relationship and thinks that it's normal. It's normalized. So that's interesting.
Emasculating. Oh, my wife's hitting me and I can't do anything about it. And like, how emasculating is that for the man?
I know, but I think we're realizing now that it's more common than we think.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like, do you think that violence or abuse do you think it's in every relationship in some small way? Like maybe not the physical, but more the verbal? Do you think that, even things like, for example, say if someone holds someone's paycheck, right? The money has to go to, say, the man or the woman, and they don't have access to their bank account. That's abuse as well. Like, do you think that there is some form of abuse in every relationship that we now are learning to recognize?
So you're saying abuse, but then there's like an umbrella, obviously, because that's like a form of control, isn't it?
Anything to do with stopping the other person having independence is abuse. That is under the umbrella of what we, I'll make sure that there's information on underneath this podcast, this segment, so people can see. Like, the spectrum of things that we consider as abuse is way bigger than I thought. Like, I just thought it was. I was naive. I thought it was physical. I didn't realize that
mental. Oh, yes.
Yeah, like the games. Telling someone that you're not going to find someone. You're not going to find someone that's good as me. So that's that mental, degrading thing. And so I'm glad that we can talk about it, and I'm glad that we've got Blake talking about it with us. So
I think it's and a great group too. I think I'm so glad they've found that group to talk and know that what they're going through, and that it's a safe space. That's what this is about, being able to talk in a safe space and know that's okay and not being judged.
Yeah, and also this knowing it's okay just to step out and talk without being uncomfortable, because we have to get rid of this whole "oh my God, I can't because I'm a man" thing. It's like, I can imagine really, really strong blokes, right? That would be so. It's so. You have to be brave to say to someone, "I'm being abused." You know what I mean? Again, going back to what we talked about earlier, like that was one of the reasons why Harry didn't say anything to his family about Meagan, because he was embarrassed. He didn't know how to tell them that she was having mental health problems. So it's funny how we become uncomfortable to share something because we don't want to be judged. It's interesting.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yes.
Oh my God, that goes so quick. Like, how do we do that? It's just like, I feel like we just start and then all of a sudden it's goodbye.
That's gone pretty quick.
Pretty quick, hasn't it?
Pretty quick.
Look, I firstly want to thank all our new sponsors, all the new people that bring segments to us. So I want to thank Get Outside Melbourne. I want to thank, oh my God, Vivid Video. I want to thank Aisha and Insynergy Property Wealth Advisors.
I also want to add to this too. You mentioned this because we texted the other day about this. You said, "Oh my God, we've got these sponsors on board," and I was excited about this. That people are wanting to be a part of who we are, and they believe in us.
And they believe in us, and they believe in men's mental health as a big driver.
Us. Yes, that's what I mean. Us,
you know, I know. Yes, but us as well. So if you ever want to be a sponsor, contact us, and we will love to have you on board. And
there's always room for more.
Always room for more. And showing your support towards men's suicide prevention, men's mental health, and just showing that you are concerned and you care about the men in your community. So thank you.
Thank you. It means a lot.
You have a good time today?
I had a great time. Always do.
I love that. I think we're going to have to set up a special fan page for you because of your new look. This is Joey.
This is Aaron.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.